if it was the gray or not. That's the one that has, I've written remove 1 point in there.
Welcome to Recotopia, a happy home for recommended movies, shows, and music from two people you can definitely trust. Trustability varies by region, no guarantees implied. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Atkinson and Jeremy Scott.
All you rookies that are just coming on as slot contenders, I want y'all to breathe in this beautiful vista. Breathe it in deeply. Because after y'all get baptized, you're never going to be able to look out into the wilds and see that pure beauty again.
We got the extra long countdown that time. Yeah.
I had time to put on pants.
That's right. Yeah, me too. This is Recotopia, episode 15. 15.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. And I'm Chris Atkinson.
And I'm Jeremy Scott.
And today's big recommend is going to be Only the Brave.
Only the Brave.
And acknowledging the people watching us live right now in the chat. Thank you for once again coming and listening to us and tolerating us. We enjoy the fact that you tolerate us more than anything. Anyway, do we want to go on with some small recommends?
It's no big deal.
Itty bitty living space.
It's so small and light.
It's small, it's tiny, it's petite, it's wee.
Let's do the small recommends. I'm going to jump right in here because I have a lot to talk about. My brother was here recently for a couple of days, and usually his whole family is here. So if we have movie watching time, it's usually a very specific kind of film.
Mm-hmm.
But with it just being him, we could watch whatever. So we decided to watch some of the recent Academy Award nominated films that we had not seen. And we started with Nightmare Alley.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a 2 thumbs up total recommend. This is Guillermo del Toro in a movie that doesn't really have any weird creatures, which surprised me. I just have filed this guy in my mind as guy who likes funky creatures, and I tend to expect them in his films. Even Shape of Water, which won Best Picture, has a weird creature in it.
Yeah.
So I just ignored this one, and mostly it was my brother's pushing that led me to decide to watch it. I loved this movie. This movie is about mentalism, psychology, trauma, fooling people, fooling ourselves. It's just got a lot of layers, and I just found it very surprising. I never really knew where it was going to go next, and the performances are all really good, and then it just has an incredible ending that just gave me chills in the best way possible.
Yeah.
So if you're like me, you were avoiding this movie because you thought it might be one thing, maybe give it a shot, because this is my favorite movie from this director, from his entire catalog, and I have already bought it and intend to make it a regular watch.
Yeah.
So, Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, I've seen the original movie, and I've seen this one. The original is, of course, going to have a lot of fans and people who don't like this new version, new interpretation of it. I mean, they're essentially the same movie with some differences. The ending, for sure, is one of them. But I saw the original just before I watched the new version, and I came out liking the new version better. And I don't know if that's just because there's just something about, I don't know, you would think that the classic movie would be way better than the remake or whatever, but like in this case, I liked the modern filmmaking sensibilities on this more than the original. But I still need, I think I need to rewatch both of them at some point. I know I loved this one. But I'm wondering if I left that new Nightmare Alley with that powerhouse ending and going, was it good because of that ending, or was it good all the way through until that ending? I mean, was it bad? Was it okay until that ending? So I kind of want to see it again because I may get some more out of it on a second viewing.
Well, what have you got for us?
I play so much Elden Ring, guys. I play so much of this. I'm trying to finish it. I'm actually at a point where I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go and just get this thing just done already. I got 260 hours on this game. So I haven't been able to watch very many movies, but I have been keeping up with some TV shows and some stuff that I'm sure I've recommended in the past. But in the midst of playing all this Elden Ring, I totally did not hear that Atlanta came back. And the first 2 seasons of this is extremely unique television. It's outstanding, and this new season of it came back and it just didn't miss a beat. This time, the characters are all in Europe, and they're experiencing. The show does some really interesting things with narrative. There's a lot of times you think this show is about one thing, but it goes on this huge like metaphorical trip or something during it. This show is exploring racism like I haven't seen in a while. Like, think about the kind of racism that you see in Get Out. It's a whole other new kind of stuff that you've maybe never thought of before, especially if you're like me and you're, a white guy. And a lot of the episodes in this they're surreal. They're funny. A lot of these people have become like so huge since Atlanta had its hiatus, whenever the last season was, which had to have been like 3 years ago. I think it was something like that. But you think about all the people who are in this, like Lakeith Stanfield, who's like now a name guy and you see in movies all the time. Brian Tyree Henry is another guy that you see all the time in movies. Zazie Beetz, another one that's just been around. And then, of course, Donald Glover. And it's just, these shows are so unique. I can't really explain what they do. They mesmerize you with how, think about how a lot of the opening scenes of Breaking Bad would I'm not saying this show is like Breaking Bad, but like Breaking Bad would always have those like full on 8 to 10 minute cold opens a lot of times where you're just like mesmerized. And by the time the commercial break hits, you're like, wow, 15 minutes just went by. Didn't have any idea. This is like what these shows are like. Each episode is like, goes through and you're like, whoa, 30 minutes just passed. Oh my God. And there's even 2 episodes in here that don't even feature the main cast. There's 2 episodes that are just completely, there's been discussion as to whether this show could be an anthology series at some point. Because there's been 2 episodes where it didn't even focus on the main cast at all, including one episode, and I will give a trigger warning on one of these. There's one episode starring Justin Bartha where an actual system of reparations is created in this world, where if your family way back in the day owned slaves and someone can prove that they're a descendant of those slaves, they can sue you for reparations. And so like the whole episode is like, what would this world be like if this were to happen? So it's just I don't know, I just love watching these. As soon as I found out that Atlanta had come back, and it came back in like March or whatever, there was 7 episodes for me to watch, and I am all the way caught up to the 8th episode that came out. So that's how breezy and fast you can get through all this stuff, and it's just unique stuff. I highly recommend. Awesome.
Donald Glover is one of those. It's a very rare person that talks smack about their own work but backs it up.
Mhm.
Like before this season, I remember 2-3 years ago him saying the next season of Atlanta is going to be better than The Sopranos.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, come on, dude.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he has at least come close to that, at least in spirit. He's an incredibly talented guy.
Mhm.
And I have not seen Atlanta, but it's long been on my list of shame. So
And I don't think you'll be disappointed in any of this. Like I said, the one with Justin Bartha has a trigger warning to it, but I would say, well, I don't know if it would say it's been done in good taste, but the scene is done in the background essentially, but it's just unique stuff, especially just the fact that they're in Europe and they're experiencing a different kind of, European racism in this movie. And just finding new ways to explore these characters and everything. It's just, I don't even know how to classify these things. Like it's not straight comedy. It's not really a drama ever. I mean, there's a drama, I guess, occasionally, but it's just surreal and just interesting and fun to watch. So,
all right. So far, 2 great recommends. Let's not let it down. My next small recommend, another recent Oscar nominee that I watched with my brother, Belfast.
Oh yeah, I love this.
I don't know what I was expecting. I really don't. But I also was really ignorant of the historical context of the setting of this movie, which is in Belfast, where some Protestants are violently trying to get Catholics out of their neighborhood. And it's a kind of bigotry that I'm privileged enough to have not been familiar with. It's almost parallel to American racism in the vitriol that these people have for Catholics because they're of a different religion. And the whole film is basically this one family who has lived in Belfast all their lives. Everyone there knows them. They all look out for each other on this street, trying to figure out if they can stay living here, because eventually the military's called in, or if they have to leave and move to England. But it's all through the eyes of their young son. And this movie doesn't work if you don't cast this kid perfect. He is adorable with a capital holy shit.
Yeah.
And he's written to make these wonderfully childlike, observations. Like he wants to be Catholic because they can do whatever they want for several weeks and then just go and confess it and they come out pure, and then they can just go do whatever they want for several weeks and then go confess it. Whereas he, as a Protestant, he has to be good all the time, and he doesn't like that. And he has a conversation with his cousin where they try and figure out if you can tell who's Catholic or Protestant based on their name.
Yeah.
Their first name. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of serious stuff going on in the background. And some of it the kid kind of understands, and some of it he doesn't. And his dad is Jamie Dornan, who is probably still best known for 50 Shades of Grey, which is a crime because he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
His mom is the woman from Outlander and Ford v Ferrari, who I'm not going to try and pronounce her name because it's complicated. But she's a tremendous actress.
Yep.
And Judi Dench is almost unrecognizable as the kid's grandmother. And is it Syrian Hines or Kyrian Hines?
It's one of those names that we can't pronounce. We're Americans. I have seen this name, how you're supposed to pronounce it before, but I don't remember what it was. So I would not want to venture.
So I done screwed up. Either way, he's great in the film. And this is directed by Kenneth Branagh, and it's a semi-autobiographical film. I will say, if you hate Van Morrison songs, don't watch this movie. Because there are approximately 13 of them. And after the third, I looked up to confirm, yes, Van Morrison is from Belfast. And the movie even opens with this loving drone shot of modern Belfast before it comes down below a bridge and morphs to black and white. to go back in time. This is a love letter to the city. And I love the way he chooses to use color. It's always what they're watching on either a movie screen or a stage play. And even when they're watching a stage play, it cuts back to the audience, and the play reflected in Judi Dench's glasses is in color, even though the whole shot is in black and white. I just really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was really heartwarming, and that kid carries the whole movie. And it's short, too. In this age of everything being 2.5 hours long, this is like 99 minutes. Just a really solid comic drama period piece.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this. It's one of those. It doesn't have like an overarching plot or anything. It's kind of an episode, like several episodes in this kid's life on his way to growing up and everything. And I really, really enjoyed it as well. This is the best Kenneth Branagh movie in a long time. Branagh,
for sure.
Got into Marvel and got into stuff that wasn't really him. I don't think. I mean, I think. We forget a lot of times that directors or performers a lot of times take directing jobs for money as well, not just acting jobs. Yeah. And I think Branagh did that quite a bit to fund something like a Belfast later on in life, because he did a lot of movies like Artemis Fowl and all this stuff that came out, and Thor and whatever. And it's just like we don't really see any distinguishable Kenneth Branagh in these movies at all. But, hey, if you're going to get a good paycheck out of it, why not? Right. Yeah. So, staying on TV, and I know some people are asking if we're going to bring back, starting now, the Barry podcast. But the third season of Barry is going on right now. It's 3 episodes in. I don't know if we'll ever come back with that podcast or not. It's on the table. I'm just saying we don't have plans for it right now. But I'd love to, because I loved deep diving into each of these episodes. This third season has Barry, played by Bill Hader, at odds with Gene Cousineau, played by Henry Winkler. Because Gene was given a revelation at the end of the second season that sort of changes their relationship in the third season. And seeing how Barry is dealing with his emotions, which is a very complex thing, considering he's somebody who's been grizzled by war, and he became an assassin afterwards, and all that is a thing where we're almost seeing the Breaking Bad of Barry basically here. Because he is our protagonist in this show, but he's also not very likable at this point. He is, there's a point where he goes to his girlfriend, played by Sarah Goldberg, and screams at her to get Gene into a show that she's now creating and producing, and that her hands are tied on, can't cast somebody like Gene because of his past, because he's such a dickhead in the past. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff that's ramped up in this new season of Barry. I'm very interested to see where this goes. And I think this could end up being it's probably its best season yet, if it's going where I'm thinking it's going. It's amazing to see somebody like Bill Hader, who has we all knew he had this in him. I think if you saw his comedy stuff, you knew he had the acting chops to do this type of thing. I just think it's a miracle that he ended up being in a show like, he helped create this show. So, but I think it's a miracle that he ended up, being in a show like this where he could show a real dynamic range, and he's mostly serious. He gets laughs a lot of times because he doesn't understand things a lot of times, but he is quite amazing in this, and this show is just I can't recommend it enough. It's so good.
Well, I have an odd perspective here. I watched the first half of the first season of Barry, and I don't remember the circumstances, but it wasn't disinterest, but I fell off. And I have not watched any of the rest since. I intend to go back and do a full rewatch. But the other day, yesterday, I wanted to watch the final episode of Winning Time on HBO
Ah, yes.
a second time,
Mm-hmm.
and they were rerunning it, and there was nothing else I wanted to have on, so I just had it on that channel, and there was an episode of Barry before that show came on. So it's like the third episode of Barry's third season, and I watched it completely clueless how we went from episode 4, season 1 to here, but I was riveted. I was absolutely riveted. So I think that's a testament to at least the performances and how those characters can pull you in.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think it's time for the big recommend.
The big recommend.
I'm fine. It's just that you're so big.
It's so huge.
It's a good rule, but this is bigger than rules.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it? I noticed.
All right, this week we punch you in the gut. How did everyone survive the gut punch? I showed this movie to my brother during the same marathon film festival as a way to both show him an amazing movie and also do my homework for today's podcast. I didn't have to probably watch this movie again. I've seen it a dozen times at this point.
Wow.
I know it inside and out. But I will ask before diving in, what did Chris think of Only the Brave?
No, I did really enjoy this movie. I will say I'm typically not as high on these based on a true story survival movies that much. I don't know why that is. But this is a really good one. This is a really good one. I don't want to, say that, I was let down by this movie by any stretch, because I knew what I was getting into watching this, and it's always interesting to hear about something that you don't really think about these jobs very often.
Right.
That's the real interesting key point for me. Is to learn about something that, you don't think about the people who go out there and fight forest fires or, anything like that. We've had a million firefighter movies, but they don't usually discuss this kind of firefighting.
No.
And so
I think it's really interesting that Entourage made a parody of a movie like this. I don't know if you remember, there was a whole season where he was going to play, the movie was called Smoke Jumpers.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like wildfire fighters, and he was like on location for a bunch of the drama. But Only the Brave is based on a true story. And if you do research going in, like my wife is reading the book, she's going to know before starting the movie what she's going to see. My brother only knew that it was a true story. So this is a story of the first municipal squad of hotshots, which are the cream of the crop of wildfire firefighters. Before that, and part of the movie's arc is they're just trainees. They have all their hours, they have all their certifications, but when they go out to fight fires, they're always superseded by the other hotshot groups who are more important than they are. And you have Josh Brolin playing the superintendent of this group of firefighters, and you have Miles Teller playing a junkie who finds himself a father and has to straighten out. That is his basically rock bottom. And one of my favorite things about this movie is the relationship those two have. Josh Brolin, from minute one in the interview, pegs Teller as a user. He says, when was the last time you used? This is because, as you will learn subtly, Josh Brolin's character used to be an addict. And he sees, a path for this job to save this kid's life just like it did for him. And you will see them over the course of, it's about a year and a half, as they train and finally get certified and fight several fires. All of the fires in the film are real fires that this crew really fought. And then you see some of the character growth at home as, Miles Teller is trying to do right and bring groceries for his, baby mama and take care of his little kid, and eventually starts to be able to spend time with, the child, gain the respect of the child's mother.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite relationship in the entire film is Josh Brolin and Jennifer Connelly.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like one of the most realistic marriages I've ever seen on film,
Mm-hmm.
because they have plenty of conflict. They even have a few fights or arguments, but you never doubt that they love each other completely.
Mm-hmm.
And the things they are fighting about are real things. There's a
Yeah.
moment in the truck where he slams on the brakes and they have a fight in the truck where she says, "Yeah, I didn't want kids before. I do now. I changed. That's what relationships do. I've been changed by you. I let you in and now I'm a different person."
Right.
Just really powerful stuff that I think grounds this movie so that when the tragedy hits, you're affected by it. You've come to see these people as, humans that you care about. My poor brother thought either Brolin or Teller was going to die. He did not expect the number of firefighters who died to die.
Mm-hmm.
I said that I would have warned you, but I don't know if it's as effective if I warned you. And I don't think it is. You have to end this story this way because this is how this story actually happened. I cut you off to rave for 10 straight minutes. What else do you want to say?
No, don't worry about it. This is your choice. So yeah, the relationship you're talking about with Brolin and Connolly there, the interesting thing is how they sort of foreshadow or I don't know if it's foreshadowing, but they show her, she loves rescuing horses. And this is where you start to see where, this is where her need for kids may be coming into her mind, is that she, as hard as it is to get a horseback who's been like cut and all the shreds at a meth lab or whatever, the reward for getting that horse back is what is bringing her into this whole, like, I'm a carer, I'm a nurturer, all these type of things. So like you can see that in several moments where they're just like saving horses in this movie. That's a part of this movie is that's about forest fires and stuff. The other thing that I like about this is Miles Teller's arc in this. I think a lesser movie would make this where he has to relapse somewhere in it, even if that's not what happened. I don't know what really happened. I don't know what happened actually in real life, but it seems more true to life. That's wrong to say because people do relapse, but
sure, it
seems more true to me that he doesn't in this movie. And they keep it there, and it's done. It's that he had this one thing that was a conflict. It has an arc to about the quarter part of the movie, and then, all right, now it's time to shape up. It's time to get in shape. It's time to learn how to do the things. And then he has another entirely different conflict, which is a conflict for all of these guys, and that they're never around their families when they're out. I didn't realize this either. I didn't realize that beating these kind of fires was something that took you away from your family that long. I understand that, these fires rage for weeks and months a lot of times. I understand that, but I didn't know that there were so many that happened, that happened enough that you're just not around your family that much anymore. And of course, I love all that training stuff. I love every bit of that. I love that could be boring for some people, but I love it. And that's the reason why I wish in movies where there's a big, huge plan hatched and you're like, how the fuck did this person show up at this exact moment and this blah, blah, blah. Because they don't show the planning for it. And I love the planning in this. Like I never thought they had little I don't know, bags that they could put them, like, to hopefully protect themselves from a fire if it were to go over them. I didn't have any idea. And they had these drills that like try to get it done in 30 seconds and all that. Find that riveting, even though for the most part, when you see it, it's not really there's no stakes involved. They're just training. But I love that love that aspect of it. So yeah, I don't know. Miles Teller has this reputation now. We're like, oh, fucking Miles Teller. I bet he was such a pain on the set. I'm sure. I bet he picked this junkie role for himself. He somehow found a way to slide into that role. He's probably stole it from Taylor Kitsch. But he's so good in this. He's so good in this. This is a perfect role for him. And I do love, even though it's a very movie tradition, that he and Taylor Kitsch hate each other the first, and then Miles Teller ends up like showing how much of a good guy he is by letting Taylor Kitsch stay over at his place, and they become the best friends in the entire movie. I don't know. Is this a flaw? I'm gonna bring this up. Is this a flaw that I knew? I didn't know the full story. I didn't know who survived, who died. I didn't know any of that. But when Teller gets on the truck at the end and drives away, and he's waving bye to Taylor Kitsch, a whole bunch of smoke fills the screen. And that's when you know that's the last time they'll see each other. Is that a good thing that they telegraphed that, or is it a bad thing? Because I think it's good, but a lot of times I'm like, I hate the fact that I know this before it happens. I hate that.
I think this is just a guess. I think he's trying to prepare you subconsciously for what's going to happen 8 minutes after that.
Mm-hmm.
It is telegraphing. I think if you are the kind of person like you are that pays attention to storytelling, but I don't think the average viewer is consciously tipped off in that moment for what's coming. I think you're probably just a little more perceptive just because you have so many movies you've seen.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those weird things where I saw that and I was like, oh boy. Now I don't know who's living or dying out of this, but those two are not seeing each other again. I know that for a fact. It's just like anything in like if you see a horror movie, you see a certain camera angle that they throw something at, you're like, okay, this is going to happen because this is what they always do with this camera angle. You know, someone is going to have one of those head-on car collisions with the way they shoot the person in the car. It always happens. You know it's going to happen. That's why it's so amazing when they are able to not telegraph it. But anyway, I think that is an artistic flourish enough that I liked it, but I was like, now I know that that's it. That's the last time they're going to see each other. So anyway, yes, this is a better movie than I thought it was. Like when this came out, I didn't really have much interest in it. This movie didn't do terribly well, but I wouldn't say that it was like a bomb or anything like that. I don't know how much it cost, but it made here it made like 18 million, and worldwide it was something like 50 million, somewhere around there. It just felt like it was another generic survival story that we had seen a million times with Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg, doing those number of things. So that's
title
what it
is not doing it.
No, well, that's what it sort of just screamed to me, was another one of those Peter Berg, Mark Wahlberg type of movies.
Well, the title is as bland as possible. I don't think it's doing any favors to the movie either. I don't know why you don't just title it Granite Mountain Hot Shots. Something like. I mean, Only the Brave could literally be about World War I, right? Like the title is not pointing you where the actual movie is. I do want to share one stupid piece of trivia.
Okay.
Which is, this is directed by Joseph Kosinski, who made Tron Legacy, Oblivion, this movie, and now Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to Top Gun. He's made 4 feature films, and he has still made 2 films with Miles Teller, 2 films with Jennifer Connelly, 2 films with Tom Cruise, 2 films with Josh Brolin, and 2 films with Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, that's cool.
He likes who he likes.
Yeah.
He's going to be one of those Christopher Nolan people, and that's fine with me. I like all 4 of his, I haven't seen Top Gun Maverick. I like all 3 of his movies. And I think now it's time to move on to the surprise double feature.
Be very, very quiet.
Secret? What secret?
Our dirty little secret.
I tell you something I've never told anyone.
So I ran the gamut on this one because there are a lot of different kinds of movies. I mean, as something as far away as Full Metal Jacket came up in my head, just because of the training sequences and everything reminded me so much. Because Miles Teller is playing Gomer Pyle, essentially. He's playing Vincent D'Onofrio in this for a bit, like not I thought of Men of Honor, the Kevin Costner Ashton Kutcher movie, where they go out. That's the movie, right? What is that movie?
I think the title is not that.
No, it's not Men of Honor. It's oh God, what's that?
But it's like the Coast Guard
movie.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't remember what that's called.
Damn.
Huh?
Damn. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Gonna look this up real quick. I'm sure somebody already knows what it is, and they can just type it in for us.
Just not typing fast enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What movie does Kevin Costner? The Guardian.
The Guardian. That's another one that I thought.
Right as it's typed there.
The Guardian is correct. And numerous. I mean, Backdraft. Just and tons of these like Deepwater Horizon and all these things that came up. Eventually I ended up on, of course someone has chatted, they put it in the chat. The Perfect Storm is the movie that ended up with the double feature on this. And this has sort of the same sort of structure to it. In The Perfect Storm, George Clooney runs this, I think it's swordfish that they're fishing in this movie, and it's like in the Narragansett, whatever. And they come back, it's him, it's Mark Wahlberg, it's John C. Reilly, there's a million people in this movie. Diane Lane.
Yeah, there are.
Diane Lane, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Anyway, Clooney is a captain of this boat. He comes back with a less than stellar haul. Michael Ironside plays the owner of the boat, who's very strict on his money. Clooney, realizing this is probably not going to last for the next few months until the season starts again, decides he's going to go back 2 days later to fish some more and try to find the hot spot before the season's over. This is much to the chagrin of everybody who was on his boat, but he's basically like, you can guys can go find another job then if you don't want to come along on this. If you think your meager amount that you made on this last thing is gonna tide you over, then fuck you guys, whatever. So he goes out there, and fishing is initially okay, and then it dries out, and then he decides he's gonna go out to this farther part of the water that people are like, that's everybody's a little worried about going out too far out into this area. Meanwhile, this Perfect Storm, which Christopher McDonald very roll credits says in this, is pointing out that there are 3 systems approaching all in this one area, like a hurricane, another, all these massive storms are about to meet into this one place to become the perfect storm. And it's interesting. I think it's interesting in this that the perfect storm also pertains to what it metaphorically into how they get into this situation and why they end up inside this perfect storm, this ship. Because if it's not for the fact that their ice machine that keeps the fish fresh during the trip, if it doesn't break, then Clooney doesn't think, I need to haul ass back to shore and run through this storm to do it. Because otherwise they're out in these clear waters. They can let the storm go by if they want to, but the fish would go bad if they decided to stay out there. So the fact that an ice machine breaks because Michael Ironside is such a fucking, penny pincher, they have to go back into it, and then of course it becomes the big, huge, like, how are they going to survive the storm? Of course they don't, because it's a true story. And so it's well made. It's Wolfgang Peterson, and an unmistakable score from James Horner. You don't even need to see the credit. It's James Horner all the way. But I thought this was a perfect one. There's even a friendship that starts out of enemies in this too. William Fichtner and John C. Reilly are against each other at the beginning. Of course, they become best of friends by the end of it. So yeah, it has even that. So
That's an excellent choice. For some reason, that movie had disappeared from my brain. Like, until you brought it up just now, or actually I think I saw the comment from Josh Zero first, but I had forgotten this movie existed. What I remember about this movie is, oddly, this was one I enjoyed walking into when it was a sold out audience, during some of the really, at the time, these were absolutely groundbreaking visual effects. And I think it's unfortunately like right before some new processor was built, that, because I don't think the effects on my TV would hold up quite as well as they did at the time. At the time, that was some real scary, real looking, humongous waves, and the crowd was. You and I both like to walk in crowds when they're laughing, or what have you. But for some reason, I kept walking into this one to see how they would react to some of the storm elements. The movie reminded me of Twister in a lot of weird ways.
Yeah.
But excellent pick, and now that movie is back on my brain. I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yep.
All right. What about our homework for listeners and for us? What are we watching, discussing next week?
Homework for next week's Recotopia is a movie that popped in my mind, and I could not let it escape. I've seen it a million times, but I haven't seen it in years, and I want to revisit it now. But it's a long one, but it's well worth it. It's The Insider. It's Michael Mann. This is about the whistleblower at Brown and Williamson who tells who does an interview with 60 Minutes, telling, hopefully trying to tell the world that cigarettes, the people who make cigarettes are trying to make you addicted to them, and are withholding that from everybody. So there's actual, this is a guy who worked with the company intimately as one of their scientists, and couldn't do that in good conscience anymore. But the drama of The Insider comes from the fact that CBS doesn't want to run the segment because they're worried that they're going to get sued, and they also have a pending sale with another cigarette company in the works. So talk about a movie with 1 million people in this. Al Pacino at his best in this. He is great. Russell Crowe is fucking amazing in this. Christopher Plummer is unbelievable. There's just 1 million people in it, and it's great. So I can't wait to revisit it. I think, and we'll talk about it when we get there, but I think this movie also low-key touches on what I feel is one of the biggest problems with our country these days. So we'll talk about that when we get there. So
yes, I love this movie. I have not seen it in probably 10 years. So I'm excited to dive back in. Let's move on to some questions.
Yeah.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
Question number 1. If you could give a Lifetime Achievement Oscar to one movie, not director, goddamn you, that was never nominated for an Oscar, what movie would you pick?
So I don't know if they mean not nominated for Best Picture or not nominated for any Oscars whatsoever. So I went ahead and did 2 choices here.
Nice. The one that didn't get Best Picture nomination is a movie that we've discussed on the show. City of God did not get a Best Picture
nomination. But it also got 4 nominations for other things. So it did get Oscar nominated. Movie that got 0 Oscars and would be in this discussion would be The Shining. So 0 Oscar nominations, and it's obviously a great movie. So
That's crazy.
Mhm.
Man. I am going with Zodiac.
yeah.
Which, as near as I can tell, and I've researched this twice, was not nominated for any Academy Award.
It was not.
It was nominated for various Critics Associations awards and cities, and it won something from Cannes Film Festival.
Mhm.
But no Oscar nominations. Now, would I trim 20 minutes from this movie? Yes, I would. It's a little too long, I think.
Mhm.
But it's, I think, one of Fincher's best movies ever. And it just, that scene when he goes to that guy's house and has the realization that he might be in the Zodiac Killer's house
Mhm.
is one of the creepiest, tensest scenes I've ever seen. I love me some Zodiac, and I feel like at least a supporting actor nomination for one of those guys. Robert
kidding.
Downey Jr., maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, and Zodiac
somehow.
Zodiac was one of these movies. I believe it came out in like February or March of that year, so it sort of got forgotten over the year. One of the movies that I thought of for this at first was Wonder Boys, but it actually got nominated 3 times. One for song.
Oh, wow.
One for song, which it won, the Bob Dylan song that's in there. But I thought Wonder Boys didn't get. I knew as I was typing Wonder Boys, I was like, I think that Bob Dylan song got nominated. Fuck. But I was going to maybe use that as an example since it was only the song that got it, but it got nominated 2 other times too. So anyway,
Stupid Bob Dylan.
stupid Bob Dylan.
I see Nightcrawler over here in the chat.
Yep. Nightcrawler
not
is a
nominated.
very good one too. Yeah, because that I don't know. Movies that dark just seem to never get play for some reason. But yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal should have been nominated for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, wait, there's another one. V for Vendetta. Well,
Yeah.
I could see at least some visual effects.
Mhm.
And
maybe Hugo Weaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that movie. So I'm here for all the awards for that.
Yeah.
All right. What was the first? Nope, I skipped one. What is your favorite and least?
Probably should skip this one because I didn't really answer it. I was sitting there trying to think of an answer for it, and I think we should do this question in the future.
In the future.
I just need to come up with an answer.
All right. I will leave that there, and we'll move on to what was the first movie that made you wonder how the filmmakers accomplished a particular shot. Mine is the scene in Prisoner of Azkaban where the camera appears to go through a mirror and into the reflection.
Similarly, the shot in Contact, a famous shot in Contact, where Jenna Malone has to get the medicine for her dad, and the camera follows her up the stairs, all the way down this long hallway, and then what? We were in the mirror the whole time?
Yeah.
How the fuck did that happen? That is an incredible shot. I've even seen how that shot was made, and I still don't know how that shot was made.
Yeah.
It's that fucking ridiculous. So yeah, that one's amazing.
That's an incredible shot. I'm going to go with, a bunch of scenes in The Raid 2. Which is a movie
Yeah.
I seem to talk about all the time, but I saw this with my buddy Josh at Opry Mills, and there's a scene with a car chase, and there's a moment in the car chase where the camera races back down the road to a car and then goes through the window and out the other window of the car and then races down the road further behind that car. And I literally turned to Josh right then and said, how the fuck did they do that? It was so flashy and yet so seamless. And of course, the behind the scenes will make you feel really silly because it's a guy dressed like a car seat who it's just 2 camera handoffs. They're just done, with the right kind of car motion that they don't feel like the camera's being handed off. It feels like you are literally sailing through that car and back down the street. Then there's that fight in the Red Mirror hallway, which you don't have to put your martial arts, pre-climax fight scene in a mirrored hallway. You don't have to make that challenge for yourself.
Yeah.
But you never see the freaking camera on any of those cuts, and I don't even care if they just went back in and digitally removed it, although some of them I can tell are positional shots.
Yeah.
But that whole fight, I'm like, where I should be able to see the camera at least once, you bastard. But I wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Like it actually makes you mad that you can't see the camera, even though that would completely ruin the fantasy that you're in.
What about? Oh, hey, I got somebody just recommended my car shot from the Raid 2.
Yep.
I like this Batkinson fella.
Yep, absolutely. And Josh is bringing up the plane crash sequence in the Terrible movie, knowing I think it's a one shot. Yes, I do believe. In fact, even though I don't remember if I saw this movie, I know what shot you're talking about. I'm pretty sure I've seen this scene. And it's pretty incredible one. If I remember correctly, it'd be weird if we both misremembering this in some way. Then, like we both remember a great shot in that Terrible movie, knowing, oh wait, there's no good shot at all in that movie. But no, I think that's what it was.
That reminds me of the first time I ever saw Citizen Kane, which was shamefully late in my film loving career. I think I was in my late 20s, and that do that pan through the window. And I mean, you see that kind of thing today.
Yeah.
But I knew I was watching a movie that was made a long time ago. And then, again, I was like, how did he do that? Like, people talk about Citizen Kane. Nobody ever told me that he did that.
Yeah.
And maybe he didn't even invent that. Maybe he stole that from like Buster Keaton or something. But it's still kind of a like, given the technology at the time, how did you do that?
Yeah, no kidding. When you see any movie from any era before 1950 do something that's like, it's before the era of real digital stuff at all.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. It's amazing.
Yep.
And everything. So, anyway.
All right, well, here is a question I hope you prepped an answer for, because I did not.
I do have an answer for this.
What is the first movie you removed sins for?
So, I am not 100% positive, but I am almost certain that it was The Gray that we did a sin removal for first. But looking back at the emails on The Gray, we don't bring up anything unless I'm missing some emails between us. There's nothing there saying, oh, that's interesting, you decided to remove a sin. But I do have the script that I sent you that has my sins on it, and it says remove 1 point is what it says in the in the script. And so that has to be the first one, because that was what was in my head. And then when I went to go see if it was The Gray or not, that's the one that has I've written remove 1 point in there. The video came out in early 2014. And it is when Liam Neeson says, I'm gonna beat you to death, all over a fucking billfold. And it's just the way he says that line that it made me laugh so hard. I just had to remove a sin for it because it's just amazing. So I believe that was the first one. There are some times that I think of some older videos where we may have done something, but I don't think we ended up either putting it in or had the concept of removing a sin at the time. I think we wanted to do something for Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, but that ended up not happening because back in the time that we did The Dark Knight, a lot of things were just very nebulous how we were doing things. Like, I was sending sins through an email. I wasn't putting him on a sheet of paper or anything like that. Right. It was like sending it. So like stuff, and then stuff didn't have time codes a lot of times. And I don't even know how we got videos up back in the day looking at some of these old scripts. Anyway, yeah, I am pretty sure it's The Gray.
All right. I like that movie. All right. I think we got time for another question.
Yep.
What are two movies that in your mind are essentially the same movie, but with different settings. For example, while in the car, I had a thought on how Ad Astra is essentially a sci-fi version of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see that.
The comparison I've always made is between Boogie Nights and Goodfellas. Because both movies start off with someone who has a horrible home life who goes on to another life that in Boogie Nights, it's not illegal, but it's certainly non-standard kind of business that you're going into. In this case, the porn industry. And in Goodfellas, it's Henry Hill going on to play a gangster or be a gangster. And in both instances, the movies show the rise of whatever field they're in. I mean, here, Goodfellas is mostly just about stealing things. And it ends up with the height being the Lufthansa heist. And then being told not to get into drugs or sell drugs. But that's what happens to Henry Hill. He gets into drugs and he falls off and he starts doing some really shitty business things towards the end. Boogie Nights, same way. They have a height that they get to, and then the world of video starts crashing into their world, and they can't shoot the films like they used to. They really think this is legit films that they're making just with fucking in it. And when video comes in and, like, you know, people just really, all they want to see is people having sex. They don't really care about all this story and everything. Once that starts happening and they start looking for other avenues and they get into drugs, they try to have a recording career, all this other stuff. And yeah, drugs ends up being the downfall of Dirk Diggler in Boogie Nights. And then all culminating with a whole, like, I've got to go back to the guy, to my father figure and say sorry. In Goodfellas, Paul Sorvino basically is like, now I got to turn my back on you. But in Boogie Nights, at least he gets welcomed back into the house by the end of it. So, but I think these movies are very similar.
That's a good call. I think that's a very good call. I wrote down some shitty answers, like The Green Knight and The Last Temptation of Christ, mostly just because they both have a character who experiences an extended, I guess, vision of a possible future. And I also wrote down that I would say The Matrix Resurrections and the first Matrix film.
Yeah.
Because they really do feel like the same movie.
Yeah.
Makes me sad.
In the comments, we've got Dora the Explorer and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Having been on the Sins video for Dora the Explorer, I could not believe how much Last Crusade was in that movie.
It's crazy.
It's insane how much is in that. We also have J.J. Abrams' Star Trek and his Star Wars The Force Awakens. Hits a lot of the same beats plot-wise. But he says it doesn't really count, though, because the setting is in space for both. But you know what? Fuck it. Who cares?
Fuck it.
And it's a different setting to me. Wrestling's real to me.
With everybody talking about the Avatar 2 trailer and release date, I would like to remind you that Avatar is just Dances with Pocahontas.
Yeah, it is. It is. Very much so. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, that was a show right there.
That was a show.
Right. Anyway, thank you guys in chat for coming out and listening to us. We appreciate you so much for coming out and spending your time with us. Next week is The Insider, Michael Mann, 1999. Watch that shit.
It's on Hulu.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. I think it's on maybe a couple other things, or is it just Hulu?
Looks like just Hulu, and then you can rent it from everybody else.
Long movie, so make sure that you have some time. I think it's like it's like 240, something like that. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, I should know. I mean, I'm only looking right at it.
Oh, yeah.
2 hours and 37 minutes.
Yeah. But this is well worth it. This is no Eternals type of experience. Anyway, we'll see you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Be a part of the live show by being a member of the Sin Club at Patreon at patreon.com/cinemasins. Chat with us on the Cinemasins Discord at discord.gg/cinemasins or Cinemasins Twitter at Cinemasins, and email any comments or questions to Recotopia at cinemasins.com. That's RECOTOPIA at cinemasins.com. Yeah, yeah, that was a surprise for me because I'm not a big Guillermo guy. He's one of those that I appreciate that he is a film nerd like all of us, and but he's never made that movie that's made me go, oh my god, that movie is so great. I mean, Pan's Labyrinth is up there, and the whatever the
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water is decent, but I'm not. And you know, I kind of liked Hellboy, and I kind of liked the sequel, and I kind of like, you know, it wasn't. There's never been anything that's been like, wow, that blew me away.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Even Pacific Rim, I'm like, yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got moments. It's got moments I love, but as it doesn't really, the whole thing doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah, he's like a more visually gifted Ron Howard is basically what it comes down.
That's perfect.
Comes down
That's perfect.
to. Yeah.
He loves him some Ron Perlman too, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I almost laughed out loud when he showed up in Nightmare Alley.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, got to find a role for Perlman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of times where Twitter will have some certain actor trending, and I will be like, not going to click on that. Especially when a movie is just brand new or whatever, because that's how you get into all that spoiler stuff is. Yeah. If it's something where I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with the movie, I'll click on that actor. But
I mean, I'm the same way. You just have to go with your gut. I appreciate that Twitter has a way for me to block certain words and phrases, but in instances like this, there's no way for me to prepare to block this person's name because I don't know to block this person. It's a big surprise. So I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't.
But it's an interesting thing. This concert, they're playing a full Rush album. They're playing A Farewell to Kings for the 6 songs that are on A Farewell to Kings. Apparently, Les Claypool's first concert was Rush during the Hemispheres tour. Just so happens to be the first concert I ever went to was a Rush concert, but they do the whole album of Farewell to Kings, and like it sounds perfect. He almost can sound like Geddy Lee.
That's crazy
with his voice, and the guitar sound and everything is just nearly pitch perfect. And I've seen 2 Rush concerts, and I probably was talking out of my ass, but like the way that was presented, I was like, man, I don't think even Rush sounds like this anymore. But like, I think Rush, live probably did do the. I don't even know if I've heard many of these songs off of Farewell to Kings live, but my God, man, that was really cool.
Oh man, I went many years ago when you and I were working at Hollywood 27. There was a summer or two where Coke was sponsoring concerts at whatever that amphitheater was that's gone now.
Well, yeah, it was Starwood, which turned into AmSouth, and
so they would give tickets. We would get tickets every now and then. As managers, we get a chance to go, and I went to see the Beach Boys, and it was no Brian Wilson. And it was 2 really old guys basically propped up on dollies, and then 3 young John Stamos-looking dudes that I didn't recognize at all. And I had a pretty good feeling those 3 anonymous young guys were carrying all the harmonies and singing, and the old guys' mics were kind of turned down.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
Sounded like the album to me.
Right.
I enjoyed myself. All right, I guess we better start.
Sure.
I sound so disappointed.